Good morning and welcome back to Black Bear Forge. Today I thought we would look at another style of candle holder. I thought we'd look at one that hangs on the wall and curves out and up so that the candle sits away from the back plate. And I'm thinking a fairly simple version of this. I'm going to just take a piece of 1/2 inch or 13 mil square bar, and we're going to flare this out to make the candle cup instead of making a separate candle cup. And we're going to use this for the arm then and attach it to a back plate made out of 1/4 by 2 inch material. So what is that, about 6 by 50 millimeter? It will require a tenon on the end of the 1/2 inch bar so that it can be riveted onto the main bar. But before we start the video, somebody sent me a package. This came in the mail yesterday, and this is from Sadie's Soaps. I wonder what's in it. I think it looks like soap. And of course there's a letter with it. It says, "I had a friend that told me about your videos and I've enjoyed watching and learning. The Hook of the Week is a great series that really does teach you to look at a piece of metal and see something in it." Maybe I should have saved this for Hook of the Week video. "I just started blacksmithing a few years ago and have really gotten into it. My wife and I are also soap makers and reenactors. We demonstrate old-fashioned lye soap making in a cast iron kettle over an open fire." And the letter goes on a little bit from there, but it says that they've sent some lye soap. That's the real deal there, soap made with real lye. And it looks like Sadie's Soaps is in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's sadiessoaps@gmail.com. And this looks like good all-natural soap, water, lard, and lye, which is the way soap has been made for centuries. Should be really good stuff. Also says that unwrap it and let it harden in air for a while and the soap will last a lot longer because it's still kind of soft. But there's several bars of soap in here. Apparently I need to turn the odor function off on my camera so you don't have smell-o-vision on your end. Yeah, I could probably use some soap sometimes. Anyways, back to our project. I've cut the ends of the back plate off at a 45-degree angle, and that should all make sense in just a few minutes. And the length is about 13 inches from point to point. Not real critical. Again, use material that you have on hand. I want to draw this out to a point and split this so I can scroll the ends. And by cutting that at a 45-degree angle, that goes a lot quicker. Plus it avoids little cold shuts and fish lips at the end. We want to try and get our shoulders back here fairly even. And you can certainly split that with a chisel if you wanted to, but I think this works out just fine. And really, this is all a procedure we've looked at many times before. I've got to find out why my holdfast quit holding. It's just sort of a paperweight now. This will place gloves come in handy to keep the radiant heat away from your knuckles. So I think the next heat, I will add gloves. It's pretty much through though. If you put it in the vise, you can drive the chisel down this way and even up the base of the split a little bit. So kind of start scrolling this, but mostly what I want to do is just knock the rag off the back of this. That's really about all that needs. I just don't want something sharp and splintery for people to cut themselves on. Now make sure you cut this from the same side so that the bevel that the chisel leaves will both be towards the front. That's a nice decorative element for a piece like this. By the way, I straighten this out a little bit so it makes contact right at the edge there. Works much better. And same thing to this side. And we can shape those little scrolls there, or horns, or whatever you want to call them. And what you do with these is really just up to you. You can bend them out and then scroll them back in to make a heart shape. You can take one direction and one the other to kind of do a flame type effect. I'm just going to do kind of a simple ram's horn here. The more symmetrical you split these in the first place, the easier it is to get a symmetrical bend at this point. Mine are a little bit off. And I'm going to try and make both ends match, but you could do them differently if you wanted to. Just lightly bevel the edges. The last thing I want to do to the back plate is I'm going to punch a hole towards one end that will become my attachment point for the arm. I'm just going to use my slit as a point to line up and get this centered. Sometimes you don't have to go over the Pritchel hole to get the slug to clear out, but looks like in this case I'll have to. Depends on how thick the material is. Yep, that cleared. I think I'm going to do something a little different to this one. I'm going to go ahead and pooch this out to give me my countersink in the back. To do that, I'll just go over the Pritchel hole with a ball punch. This will give me a place to countersink a rivet head. And perhaps add a little bit of character to the front of the piece. It's kind of hard to say. Just an experiment, but that gives a little bulge right there. So that pretty much does it for the back plate at this stage. Next thing we want to do is work on the arm that has the candle holder. Now I'm going to do something a little different with this. I'm going to reduce it on the diamond so that it appears to be in two different cross sections in the end. I want to leave enough for the candle cup and then enough for a transition point. And then I'm just going to take this down to about a 3/8 square bar on the diamond. And I probably want about 6 or 8 inches done this way, something like that. I'm just kind of guessing. Like so many things, I haven't made one like this in a long time, and I don't have a set of measurements written down anywhere. Like I say, I want to reduce this to a square bar in between, so I'm not going back and working the original flat cross section. It's a little confusing to start with, and it tends to want to twist a little bit. Fortunately, my diamond here is not in line with my diamond over here, so I took that to the vise and just gave it a little twist to get that line back up again. And try to get a nice clean transition here if you can. Let's see. That's about what I want. That's pretty close to 3/8. About 10 millimeters, something like that. That just provides a little bit of an interest through here. Now I want to make sure these are in line on the end, so I'm going to go to the vise. I drew this out just far enough that I can get that in the vise on that flat. Then I can adjust these so that the diamond is in line. I've changed my mind about putting the candle cup on this end just because I think it will be easier to do the tenon while I've got this long bar to hold on to. So I'm going to cut this off with just enough space to do my tenon instead of candle holder. Butcher in to make the tenon. Just like drawing anything else out, we start square, then we'll go to octagon and then round. And of course, this is way too long, so we can trim it off. A whole lot easier to clean up that tenon when it's short and make sure our monkey tool fits over it. I think that's pretty close. And straighten that out. We're going to have to cool this off so we don't deform all this while we're using the monkey tool. So we put the monkey tool on there, and square up this shoulder. I like to rotate it a little bit here and there just to make sure it's all straight, and you can keep an eye on the tool that way. And if it starts to go off at an angle, you kind of stand it up and tap it down. That makes for a much cleaner shoulder, though, than the way it's forged right out of the tenoning dies. So now I'll leave enough room for that candle cup on this end. And I think that will be easier in the long run. We can turn it around and work that. I'm just going to spread this out. I'm going on the diamond. I don't know if it matters that much. But that's just what I decided to do. And I'm going to let it flare. And I want this to be more than 3 times the diameter of my candle at the top of the flare here. It's going to have to be pretty thin. So for a 3/4 inch candle, I want about 2.5 inches. And I'm at 1 3/4 inches now, so I'm getting close. And I want to make sure it's also straight-sided down here so that it's a nice even cone. That's 2 1/4, just a little bit more. I think I've got material there to work with. I'll look for my thick spot there and spread it out to get most of this. Cools off quick when it's that thin. And my 2 1/2 there. Now it's mostly just a matter of cleaning that up and making it look pretty. Working over the horn with a small rounding hammer can really help refine this without messing up this end. think in the long run I'll end up doing a little grinding to clean up the straight edge of this. Just make it look a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to go do that real quick, and then we're going to roll this up. So that's just all I want to do to that. Let's go ahead and find a swedge, and we'll start sinking this in a swedge to get it to start bending. Decide if one side's prettier than the other and put the good side out where it'll show and the bad side in. And then just roll this up gently. Remember, it's a cone. You don't just bend it in the middle. It's got to follow the shape of the cone. Starts to wrap up, you start working it from the outside. Get these ears tucked in so they come together. This isn't very different than making a socket for a chisel or something, although this is probably thinner. And I would do a chisel socket. But you kind of get the idea there. I'm going to refine this on this little stake, but if you don't have one, you can do it all at the anvil with a swedge. In fact, you can roll it all up at the anvil if you want to. You do want this to be straight in line with your arm on your candle holder here, so take a moment to make sure that's going to work out for you. Now this is looking a little odd to me. I don't like that on that end as well as I liked it on this end, so I think I'm going to change that a little bit. So I think I'm going to extend my other square up into there. And that'll help me transition into that candle socket just a little bit better, I think. You don't know how these things are going to work until you try them, so you might as well try them. It also isn't that hard to fix it if you don't like it. I'm just going to run this over this stake one more time. This doesn't need to be welded. In fact, leaving it a little bit loose will make it easier for it to spring and clamp onto the candle. I think that end is all done then. Did I end up with a 3/4 inch candle cup here? Just barely. I've got this bending fork here that's got a notch cut in it that I can put the diamond on the square bar in there, and then I can bend the piece that's been forged 45 degrees around that. It will make life a little easier. At least I hope it will make life a little easier. So I just want to put that right there. And I'm going to do a little bit of work on that to clean that up because I'd like it to be a sharper square corner. I'm just going to lock that in the vise there and work this down a little bit. Try and create a little bit more of a square shoulder there. Try not to mess up that diamond. It's kind of hard to create it. We ought to leave it that way. So that's already looking much better. Again, I'm trying to protect that diamond area so it looks good in the finished piece. Just clean all that up, and if this is crooked, this is a good time to put just a little twist. Don't go too far at that short of a distance though, because it's a good way to shear that off. So I think that's good. And that goes in the back plate. This drops down and then bends back up again. And I just want to bend this in a nice gentle U. So something like that. It's not as perfectly even as I might like, so we may do a little bit of tweaking on it. This is a great place for one of these pipe jigs here. It would have been easier to just bend it in this in the first place, but that's okay. I think that's pretty much what I'm after. A little bit of straightening in the vise that we don't really need to watch. Just get this plane back in where it should be. So this then will assemble here. It looks something like that. Fortunately, my punched hole is a little bit big, which is regrettable. So I might go put a little bit of a plug weld in the back of this just to fill that hole up a little bit. And that will make it easier to rivet in the long run anyways. And that would be an acceptable way to just do the whole thing, is just to go ahead and cut this off flush and plug weld it. I certainly prefer showing things in a more traditional manner. I think the tenon and the rivet were the way to go with this, and it can be very strong, but because my tenon was a little undersized and it was going to be hard to get everything to line up just right and get that to swell and make a good tight joint, I decided that making sure that this was solid was more important than sticking with the traditional method. So I plug welded it from the back, and I put a little fillet weld around the base here, and I cleaned that up some with a die grinder and a chainsaw file just to make sure that looks pretty. So our next step is going to be go back over to the forge. There's just a tiny bit of misalignment here. Get all that clean. And we still need to put mounting holes. I got a little ahead of myself here. I should have drilled holes for mounting before I put the arm on, but it's not a big loss. I can still get that done. And that still allows you to sneak an 1.5 inch long bolt in that hole behind the arm, and you just have to use a box end wrench to tighten the bolt. So I just want to take a minute here and try and line everything up as best I can and try and make the candle stand parallel to the wall there. Doesn't take a whole lot of bending to do this stuff, just very gentle, minor adjustments. Put the usual Johnson's paste wax finish on this. Get a little little burr here. That looks better. Well, even though this didn't go together exactly as I had envisioned, it's still a fun little project and it's still completely useful. In fact, the arc weld is a little bit stronger than it would have been otherwise. It's just not the way I really wanted to put it together. And as a result, I will probably price it a little bit less when I put it on the Etsy shop for sale. So if you're looking for something like this, that's where it'll be. There's the finished wall sconce. I think ideally what I should have done is put a square tenon, punch a square hole, and of course I should have snuck up on the tenon size, checking it regularly. I just got in a little bit too big of a hurry, and that's what happens sometimes when you get in a little bit too big of a hurry. But nevertheless, I've learned something, and I hope you've learned something. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button down there. Ring the bell next to the subscribe button to be notified when I make new videos. Feel free to stick around, watch a few of the other videos, and of course, share the videos with your friends. If you'd like to provide financial support for the videos here at Black Bear Forge, there are links in the video description for both PayPal and Patreon. Those are merely donations. The content is free. In the meantime, I hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop, make something, try something new if you have a chance, but have fun, be safe, wear your safety glasses, and we'll see you for the next one.